Thank you everyone for joining us for what I think is going to be an interesting conversation on building local resilience. Today we're joined by 4 very interesting panelists. We've got Dr. Shakuntala Thilsted, Global Lead for Nutrition and Public Health at World Fish, as well as Elijah Amoo Addo, Founder and Executive Director for Food for All Africa Program, María, Environmental Undersecretary at the Municipality of Rosario in Argentina, as well as Nyasha Mudukuti, who's a Zimbabwean farmer and Cornell Alliance for Science Global Leadership Fellowship. Thank you so much for joining us. And my name is Rumbi. I'm an associate editor here at Devex. So at the moment, we don't have Elijah, but I assume he'll be joining us soon. But I'm just going to start by asking you, Shakuntala. So discussions around the pre-summit are mostly going to be around equity and sustainability. How important is equity and sustainability?
Having me, Rumbi. As you know, where we are now and where we started with the UN Food Systems Summit, we began by having and still have 5 action tracks. And one of those action tracks, action track 4, is particularly people focused. So it deals with advanced equitable livelihoods, and the focus is on women, indigenous peoples, and youth. Not that it's not everyone else, but these are the 3 focus groups that the partners have agreed to work with. But when you look across the Food Systems Summit, food systems in itself contain elements which deal with people across the food systems, from those who produce to those who consume, and also those who waste foods. So it's very much based on the people-centered approach. It's very much based on the resilience and sustainability of food systems, and using the whole framework and all the elements of the food system. And I do hope that in the summit we have already very many different categories and groups of people from very many different nations, from very many different sectors, from many different levels of society. And I do hope that we will be able to hear the voices of all these different groups of peoples, not only listen to the voices, but be able to get from them the solutions and the ideas that we should use to frame the Food System Summit, so that the summit really lives up to being a people summit, and being able to take into consideration not only the issues that people face, but the solutions that they would like to see be put in place to solve these issues.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So you mentioned local voices and getting all these voices heard. Maria, how important is it to ensure that these local voices are heard?
Hello, Rumbi. Thank you. Yes, this is really important for us in our experience. We have to know that through empowerment and through participatory processes, we have to work to have a sustainable food system. In our cities, the way we've been working, to really sustain and have really connection with the city, because we have to have technical support, we have to have political support, but without the workers, the farmers, and the people that are having co-benefits from the social aspect, from the economical aspect, and as well from the climate change adaptation and resilience, we wouldn't be able to have a sustainable food system. And that's why we work in urban agriculture and peri-urban agriculture to really produce food inside of the city.
Thank you. And at this point, I think I'm just going to take an audience question. We've got a question coming in from Liberata Kawamala. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm going to pose this one to you, Nyasha, because I think it actually speaks to your experience. So would you say that her question is, does the environmental activists in Africa, are they given an opportunity to take part in food security policy, would you say?
How do I tackle that? That's a question that is very difficult to answer, if I can say, because if you look at the environmental policies in Africa right now, most of the governance concerning these policies and practices, we have people who are not much knowledgeable about what's happening on the ground, about the science as well. So if I look back, especially at my country, so I've been more active on the side of science and agriculture. So we do talk about the use of science in helping us have a sustainable environment. But you realize that we have policymakers who are not making the right decision based on the science, based on the facts. So we need to give these young environmental scientists who are coming up a platform so that they can air out their views, air out what they have learned that can help the community and society. So one way that we can have environmentalists coming in is to let them work on the ground. So being heard sometimes is not influencing the bigger party as in a bigger policy, but I think they can work on the smaller ground in their communities and be effective in them. When you speak to your people, they understand you. They hear what you're saying because you can relate to their environment, you can relate to their societal beliefs, you can relate to the norms and cultures of that indigenous community. So environmentalist, in as much as it's an impact, I feel like an impact can be local, but with a global mindset. So we need them on the ground to make that impact on the ground. Then we can be able to say, from that small impact, it scales up till we can see policies changing at a higher level. But really having young people and having our environmental young people influencing the policy side of things is a hard challenge for upcoming African environmentalists. It's really hard because it's hard breaking through the barriers of when you realize that agriculture has been politicized. So it's a hard environment for them to pave that and make a way and be leaders in their environmental sectors that they can be heard. But I feel like as a young person as well, taking up the arms to say, this is where we are with agriculture, but this is the future that we want to see with agriculture in a sustainable way, we can also work on local scale. So I advocate mostly on having young people and having those young environmentals, enthusiastic environmentals, working on the ground with the people. They can make an impact on the ground in rural villages. So just one person is enough to make a ripple effect for us to make a change for the world.
Yeah, and I know that that's actually the work that you've been doing a lot of work on the ground. And actually all of you here have been doing a lot of work in terms of building resilience on the ground. And then COVID-19 happened. So what impact has COVID-19 had on the work that you're doing? And I'll just ask each one of you, but I'll start with you, Shakuntala.
Well, the disruptions of COVID-19 have been quite disastrous for many people. And then at one point in time, we thought that we were in a stage of recovery. And now we see in many places where I work, Asia, Africa, not so much in the Pacific, but Asia and Africa, that there are new waves and new disruptions. And what I think is very trying and very sad to see is the effect it's having on people, because the people who we work with, they have their families, they have their children, they have their whole network that they should be taking care of. And if we would come to them and just talk work, that's not going to suffice in the climate that we have today. So if I would look at where we are today, I would very much like that governments and other development partners think about those who are falling behind and really put into place very strong programs, social network programs, school feeding programs, mother and child health care programs, really vamp up the programs that governments and international local partners can put into place, so that we ensure that we do not have people falling behind, and that we make sure that what we are doing and leading up to the Food System Summit and beyond, that no one is left behind. And we take into consideration a right-based approach. And if we would take into consideration a right-based approach, then we would truly know that we have to have solutions that that work for everyone. Different solutions, but must work for everyone. And it's going to be disastrous if we do not put into place now and here and large programs to ensure that we do not have too many falling behind.
Yeah. And at this point, Maria, I just want to bring you in. So what impact has COVID had on the work that you're doing?
Yes, I think that this has brought us many, many challenges, but also some things that we can learn of. For example, a big issue for us was food security. At one moment, we weren't sure if the transport inside of the country was going to be stopped. And most of the vegetables we consume in the city, we are a city of 1 million people, come from many kilometers away. So the issue of food security really got bigger and bigger. Happily, that did not happen, but I think that we have to continue having more and more urban and peri-urban agriculture near to our cities. So at least part of the food that we consume, we can have it a few kilometers away. That this obviously help us with the greenhouse gases emissions. We have a lot of studies reporting that this has a great impact. And another thing that changed as well is that many people were in their homes and starting to realize about issues related to climate change and environment. So we helped to have many people have vegetable gardens in their houses and composting. So we gave seeds, we gave training. So we have now more than 2,000 people that have vegetable gardens in the houses. And also we had to adapt to have virtual farmer markets. We have farmer markets for the local produce we have, and we had to adapt with the farmers to have different ways of selling. So I think this has brought many challenges, but we have to learn to really think about our city, we can produce inside of our city and have more green spaces so that we can be resilient also to floods and future crisis that we may have. Having green infrastructure in the city is a great advantage.
Thank you. So, and I like that idea of we had a lot of challenges, but it also brought about some very innovative solutions, which is quite interesting. So, Nyasha, what disruptions have you seen happening on the ground? And I know this is something that you're actually quite passionate about. What role can technology play in sort of solving these problems looking ahead?
Okay. So I think I'll give you a personal experience that I had with COVID. So I was working in New York with the Alliance for Science when the shutdown started in Zimbabwe. So I have family back home in Zimbabwe. And I remember calling my little sister, like, just checking on them, like, are they okay? Do they have enough food? You know, and she was on a queue, like a big queue for Millie Meal. You know, that day she was in a queue for Millie Meal. These queues were going on when there was a shutdown. People wanted still to feed, even if there's a lockdown. People wanted food at the end of the day. So for me, there were no 6 feet apart. There were no COVID measures that were taking place because people were hungry. They needed food in their stomachs. It was now more of a stomach issue now. So I remember calling her and she's telling me she needs to send food back home to my mother, who's also a farmer. So I grew up on a farm with my mother who farms. So it was that state for me realizing that things have shifted. You know, it used to be the village people, the rural areas who would supply food to us in the cities. When I used to go to college, my mom would send me a packet of Millie Meal, a packet of sweet potatoes that I would go with. But now my sister had to make sure that she is well fed because the crops were not doing well. But also at the end of the day, it was a shift for me to realize that in as much as we are scared of the COVID virus that is out there, there's a bigger virus that is silent, that is killing each and every day, whether there is COVID or not. You know, there is a hunger virus that is going on. It's a silent killer, and we've been talking about it. But now it's more, it's made big now because of the COVID virus, the COVID that is happening. So in that area, it really shifted my view of how we view agriculture. And I think for a lot of people that at the end of the day, we still need quality food. We still need good nutrition. We still need to feed. And one way that we can combat COVID is actually with good nutrition. So agriculture is quite really important at this point when we're dealing with COVID. Though the talk more is about COVID, we forget the nutrition side of it. We forget the feeding part of it, where your body needs to fight with vitamins. Your body needs to fight with all the micronutrients that you need. So it's food, right? But when it comes to being with the Alliance, we talk more on science, we talk more on climate resilient crops, we talk more on and letting these technologies be accessible to every farmer, to everyone. Let them make a choice that they want to use biotechnology or not. Let them have the access to those innovations and technologies in the world that other farmers are benefiting from. But you realize that during this COVID pandemic, we had more scientists on Facebook, more scientists in our communities than the actual scientists were doing the work. So when the COVID came out, people got scared about technology. I couldn't talk about biotechnology to some of my friends because they were scared of microchips. They were scared of what's going to happen, this manufactured virus. So I work in a science field that deals with food. And when you talk about food, it's a very delicate issue because people eat food. People are emotional with their food. So you don't play around with people's food. So for me, I realized that talking about science and food and COVID in one sentence wasn't going to work for us. It was really hard because people didn't trust the scientists. Even if I'm here in America, right? But you could realize that there were different views on COVID pandemic, even with the scientists and the politicians. And so where do we go from there if we cannot trust the scientists? Where do we go from there? How do we benefit from and leverage from the science that we have? So it was a difficult space to be now when we say, okay, we need to talk about biotechnology in agriculture. We need to talk about these innovations that are good in agriculture. But how do we do that when people are scared of the science right now? People are scared that it's been manufactured. People are scared that we're all going to die. People are scared of the 5G, 4G, everything. People are scared of this technology. So the past year, honestly, the conversations about biotechnology have been low, if I can say it. Have been low. But the good thing now is you educate people. You let them make informed choices. I talk about informed choices because it's one thing for me to just tell you this is good, but without really addressing your fears. We need to acknowledge the fears that the public has. Even the farmers, they have fears when accepting this technology. You're not just saying, yeah, we have this new technology, take it and impose it on them. You need to explain to them and you need to address their fears. They're scared. What is it going to change about their everyday life? So we need to address those fears. So for us, it was really lowering down to them, to someone who doesn't even know science, to scale down the science in order for you to make it more understandable to a lay person. So they understand that this is what we are doing. It's already being done. We're just adding 1, 2, 3. But then the advent of vaccines also played a big part for us. Then you realize that the science that they've been rejecting and mistrusting, they're changing their views about it. More people are now accepting the vaccines, right? Which is a good conversation for us because when we talk about the vaccine, there is biotechnology in the vaccines. There's mRNA technologies that is being used for those vaccines. So people will value their health because no one wants to die. No one wants to die. So people will go and take the vaccine, So now we have a starting point to say this biotechnology that you're rejecting or that you are seemingly not willingly to understand is actually the one that's working for vaccine production, So
I just need to interrupt you, Nyasha, because we're actually coming to the end of our sessions. I know this is really getting quite fascinating, but I also wanted to just get some final thoughts from all of you on what are each of you hoping to come out of this pre-summit? So I'm just going to start with you, Shakuntala, so that we can just have some final thoughts. And I think we only have time for a minute each.
So Rumbi, it's going to be very difficult because with the pre-summit, we had hoped that we could be able to bring people together and bring many different groups of people together from different places, from different societies, but we won't be able to do that. So just getting finding the means of which the pre-summit can have relevance for all peoples. I think we are still working on that, and that's going to be difficult, and it's not easy. What I do hope is that we still find ways where we can bring the voices together. And as I said before, not just the voices together that tell about their issues, as Nyasha is talking about, but also using the voices, listening to the voices, listening to traditional knowledge, and finding how we can combine those in order to get the solutions that meet the needs and aspirations of all people. And that we can take these lessons from the pre-summit to the summit in September, which I hope is going to happen in September.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
But Maria, so what are your hopes for this pre-summit?
Yes, I think it's also important to talk about what cities can do inside of the cities and in the areas surrounding cities. Also about the importance of sustained political efforts, sustained technical efforts, but obviously the connection with the civil society, with the people, with the local knowledge, as Shakuntala was mentioning. So bringing it all together and not just being a thing for one government or the other, but really sustaining in the long run. So I think those are some issues we have to look out in the summits.
And Nyasha, your final thoughts? What are we hoping to see in this pre-summit?
Wow, yeah. I think Dr. Shakuntala mentioned something about people, So when we talk about food systems, it's not a mechanic system that is not driven, that is just automatic. It's driven by people. So I really love the fact that she mentioned women, she mentioned indigenous people. I might forget it. Oh, she mentioned young people. She mentioned me. So, she mentioned young people.
Yes, Nyasha, we have to look to you for the solutions.
Yes, because when we talk about this food system, it's from the seed to the table. So there's a value chain that encompasses a lot of people that we need to bring to the table. We need to bring everyone to the table, the researchers, the politicians, the farmers, the stakeholders. We need everyone on the table and have their voice heard. But one thing that I like focusing on the indigenous and women is that the indigenous people in our rural communities have been resilient. They've been resilient way before we knew, because it's just that it hasn't been documented. It wasn't written down. It wasn't filmed. So we don't really have it now to prove that these are the ways that they've been working out resilience in their communities. So I like that, including them to the discussion, bringing them to the table. We can listen, as what Doctor said. We can listen to how they were doing things, and then we can make sure that with the new ideas that we have, how do we merge these two? How do we merge these two to come up with a solution? So I'm all for including everyone and including the marginalized groups that we have mentioned, and having the talk and the discussion with them included, and see where we go from there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. This was such an interesting conversation, and I wish we had more time. And we're hoping to see a very inclusive pre-summit, and our reporters will definitely be following this, and I know you guys will be following it. Thank you for the interesting conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rumbi.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.